America is slowly falling apart. Not in a war, nor in a catastrophic natural disaster. This collapse is coming from within, silently. The real reason? You see it with your own eyes every day in the ordinary costs of living. You feel it when you go to the grocery store, when you stand at the gas pump, when your heart races paying rent, or when you gasp at a new premium on your health insurance paperwork. Each bill envelope seems to land at your door like a threat. Today in America, more than 60% of people live paycheck to paycheck. Nearly half of the population struggles to come up with $500 in an emergency. Credit card interest rates have risen above an average of 22%, and total U.S. personal debt has now reached $18 trillion, a figure unprecedented in history. Since 2020, rent has risen nearly 31%, but real wages? They have barely moved. People are working longer hours, yet gaining less security. You are not lazy, you are not crazy, and you are not alone. The entire system is structured in such a way that no matter how hard you try, in the end, you find you are merely surviving, not living. If your bank account feels like a sinking ship, know that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Let's see why this is happening. This is the invisible weight of debt that has silently gripped every American family. When people on TikTok, Reddit, or other platforms explode in frustration over the inhuman costs of living, one aspect few mention: this debt is no longer just an economic problem, it is a psychological disaster. You are not just fighting bills or rent, you are fighting a systemic trap designed to keep you bound forever. Recent figures from the New York Federal Reserve show that by June 2025, in just one quarter, non-housing debt rose by $45 billion. That debt now totals nearly $3 trillion, including car loans, student loans, and credit cards. Household total debt is nearly $18 trillion, a frightening record. Think about it. You earn $3,000 a month, and $1,000 goes to installments or debt repayment. Then you are not living, you are merely practicing survival. And when interest rates keep rising, your minimum installment becomes not a small burden, but a life-changing burden. Now the delinquency rate has exceeded 4.4%, meaning 1 in every 25 people is behind on some form of debt. This is no longer a marginal issue. It is now mainstream reality. When a father cannot decide whether to pay a car installment or buy food for his child, it becomes clear that it is not just the economy, but the very fabric of society that is collapsing. America is breaking, not from bombs, but from the weight of bills. Now the question is, whose shoulders are bearing the heaviest weight of this debt? You might think, the young people? You're right. Right now, the greatest burden in America is being carried by Generation Z, those born between 1997 and 2012. In the past year alone, this generation's debt has increased nearly 24%. They are growing up in a time when the basic cost of living keeps rising, but income growth? That's lagging far behind. You see, this young generation has entered an economic game where the rules were written in advance, against them. They are finishing college with an average of $30,000 in student debt on their backs, and just then they enter a job market where benefits means you can work from home, but health insurance? That's not part of your luck. They are entering an economy where owning a home has become a dream reserved for the wealthy. You might think, then why don't they just rent? But the truth is, rent itself has become a luxury. According to Rent.com, since 2020, the average rent has increased by about 31%, meaning that apartment you paid $1,200 for in 2020 now costs around $1,570. But your income? It hasn't performed any magic. It stayed almost the same. So what do? Work longer hours? Take a second job? Cut expenses? Still, you'll see you're standing still, while everything around you keeps getting more expensive. This is no longer just an economic issue. It's a silent psychological war where every minute, every dollar, and eventually even your peace of mind, is slowly being drained by the system itself. And one day, when you look in the mirror and wonder, why can't I move forward no matter how hard I try? Remember this, it's not your fault. You are not a failure. This is a deliberately rigged game where ordinary people are always left behind and corporate giants are always ahead. You are not responsible for inflation. You are not responsible for rent hikes. You are not responsible for your mountain of debt, because this system was built to make people like you survive, but never be free. Now let's see, who are the real winners in this massive economic game? When you walk into the grocery store to buy eggs, milk, and bread, you might not notice, but those three items now cost 20 to 30% more than they did in 2020. The question is, where is that extra money going? Not to the farmer, not to the truck driver, not even to your local store owner. That money is going straight into the pockets of large corporations. They raise prices, then justify the extra profit by saying it's because of inflation. But the truth runs much deeper. From 2020 to 2023, corporate profits alone accounted for more than 1/3 of inflation in the United States, meaning rising prices aren't an accident. They're a deliberate strategy. They know you have no choice. You can't stop buying food. You can't skip gas and still get to work. You can't skip rent without losing your roof. They know you're trapped, so they squeeze you slowly with every single purchase you make. And then the government comes along and says, inflation is cooling down. But you don't feel it, because the measurements they use are designed so the real pain never truly shows. They say, inflation is at 3%, but in your shopping basket, milk is up 15%, vegetables 20%, and eggs nearly doubled. They say, average rent is $1,700, but if you live in New York, Los Angeles, or Miami, you know that number is laughable, because in reality, your rent is closer to $3,000. That's why you feel everything looks fine in the government reports, but nothing feels fine in your life. Because in their data sheets, there's an average person, but in real life, you are not that average. Your struggle, your bills, your fight to survive, they don't fit inside those numbers. They've crafted a narrative to make you believe everything's okay. But beneath the surface, the entire system is collapsing, quietly, silently. Now let's see, this collapse isn't just about the dollar. It's the collapse of a culture. Once, America was the land of dreams. Innovation, creativity, hard work. These three pillars held up an entire continent. But today, America has become a place where people don't live. They merely struggle to survive. Once, people believed in the American dream, owning a home, building a family, finding a little peace before retirement. These were real goals in life. But for today's younger generation, that dream is nothing more than an old fairy tale. They were born into a reality where a college degree means a mountain of debt, a job means uncertainty, and owning a home is a privilege reserved for the wealthy. To them, the American dream isn't inspiration, it's a bitter joke. Think about it. When your parents bought a house at 25, you're now over 30 and struggling to pay rent for a one-bedroom apartment. When they got a job, it meant stability, security, a future. And you jump from one job to another, yet every time you end up in the same place, instability. Meanwhile, the media tells you everything's fine, the economy is strong. They want you distracted, so you never realize that the problem isn't you. The problem lies deep within the system itself. Today's society is built to keep you constantly occupied with the next bill, the next payment, the next month's worry. They don't want you to stop and ask, who is the system really working for? Have you noticed? Each generation is poorer than the last. Once, a single income could support a family. Now, even two jobs can barely cover expenses. This system was built so that workers labor their entire lives, yet never achieve true freedom. You might think, this is just how economics works. But no, this is a deliberately engineered structure of control, a system designed to dominate your time, your labor, and your dreams. They want you busy, so you never pause to ask, who stole my dream? Think about it. If a person works their entire life, rushing to the office every morning, returning home exhausted every night, and still has nothing left when retirement comes, can that really be called a personal failure? No, it's the failure of a system. According to 2024 statistics, the average American retirement savings amount to just $65,000. That may sound like a lot, but do you know what it really means? Let's say you retire at 65, and your monthly expenses are $3,000. That savings will last only 2 years, and after that, you start working again. Maybe at a grocery store, maybe in an Amazon warehouse, or maybe behind the wheel of an Uber, until your body simply gives out. This isn't a coincidence. It's a designed cycle. The more you work, the more taxes you pay. The more taxes you pay, the more expensive your life becomes. And when you're finally exhausted, the government says, "Don't worry, we're providing you benefits." But where does that benefit money come from? From you. From the sweat of your own labor, they take that money and hand a small portion back to you like charity, and even that runs out quickly. The most terrifying part is many people don't realize they're actually living in a state of economic slavery. You wake up in the morning, go to work, pay taxes, cover your expenses, and go to sleep worrying about how you'll pay next month's bills. You're so trapped in this repetitive cycle that you no longer have time to ask, who's really winning this game? The answer is clear. The banks, the corporations, and the political elite. The money the banks lend you, they don't even have it themselves. They just press a button, type a few numbers on a screen, and for that imaginary money, you pay interest for years. This is how they keep an entire nation trapped in a web of debt so that no one can ever truly be free. You think you're a free person, but in reality, you're a worker in a system where freedom is a product and your life just a ledger entry. Now think about it. How does this entire system survive? It stands on 3 pillars: debt, distraction, and fear. Debt, because every day you work for things that aren't truly yours. The money you sweat for is just an invisible liability, a number someone created by pressing a button. The house you build, the car you buy, everything stands on borrowed money, a debt you're never meant to fully repay. Distraction, because as long as you don't see the truth, you'll never be able to change anything. So they keep you busy, in the noise of news, the arguments of social media, the lure of advertisements, and the drama of politics. So you never have time to ask, who's really running this game? And then comes the greatest weapon: fear. Fear of losing your job. Fear of medical bills. Fear for your family's future. That fear is the chain that forces you to live quietly inside this broken system. But do you know what the biggest deception is? You think you're free. But if every day of your life is spent worrying just about survival, then how free are you really? When freedom means paying your bills on time, and happiness means having a few dollars left at the end of the month, that's not freedom, that's modern slavery. They haven't put chains on you. They haven't locked you in a cell. They've shaped you in such a way that you've learned to love your own chains. You work, you pay taxes, you repay loans, and you believe you're free. But in reality, you're spinning endlessly in a cycle that survives on your ignorance and your fear. And as long as you remain asleep, they will control you. That's why they never want you to wake up. If you notice, they never control you directly. They don't need to point a gun or issue commands. They do it slowly, subtly, through your choices and your thoughts. They teach you what success should look like: a big house, a new car, a busy life, shiny photos on social media. You think you're making your own choices, but in truth, you're choosing exactly what they've pre-planned for you. You buy what they want to sell, you watch the news they want you to believe, you vote for the politicians they've already selected behind the curtain. And in this way, they give you controlled freedom. So you think your life is in your hands, when in reality, everything is carefully designed. Now look at how they've even purchased your attention. You stare at screens all day, notifications, news, memes, short videos, all crafted to keep your mind constantly occupied, yet never able to think deeply. You're getting information, but losing wisdom. You're gaining connection, but sinking into loneliness. You look free, but inside, you're imprisoned. Their goal is simple: to keep you from thinking, to make sure you never realize you're living inside a false freedom. This modern slavery is so perfect that most people never notice it. They think, I'm living my own life. But in truth, they're living inside a programmed one. But remember one thing:
The system that controls people cannot survive unless people themselves keep it alive. They don't force you. They just want you to believe. Believe in their stories, their rules, their manufactured world. As long as you accept their false reality as truth, they will survive. But the moment you stop and ask, why? The whole structure begins to shake. Because the greatest fear of this system is a conscious human being. A person who no longer believes the lies on the TV screen, who knows that corporate media doesn't serve truth, it serves profit, who has realized that economic, politics, war, and culture are all parts of one vast business. They don't want you to know that, because once you do, you stop being a consumer, you become a free individual. You'll understand that happiness is not a product. It cannot be bought or sold. You'll realize that wealth isn't just the number in your account. It's time, freedom, and peace of mind. But the system doesn't want that. It wants you to keep running. In work, in debt, in pressure, in competition. It wants you exhausted, so you fall asleep at night and start the same race again the next morning. Because as long as you keep running, you are safe for them. You are not dangerous. But the moment you stop and start thinking, what am I really doing? Whom am I feeding, and who feeds off my labor? That's when cracks begin to form in the system. A conscious person cannot be programmed, cannot be silenced by fear. And that is why they want to keep your fear alive. Because as long as you fear, you remain controlled. And as long as you are aware, you are free. And that awareness, this is the most powerful weapon of all. Because when you begin to see the truth, you stop being just an ordinary person. You become a fracture within the system, a tremor that slowly shakes everything. You are not alone. When you speak, when you inform others, when others hear their own story in your voice, that's when the fracture spreads. This system survives on people's silent consent. As long as people stay quiet, as long as they accept it as just reality, everything continues as before. But one day, when people start to understand themselves, recognize their own power, and stand together, that's when the entire structure trembles. That is the moment when the seed of change is planted. You'll realize this collapse isn't an accident. It's the result of a long design, built over years, with every breath and every drop of your sweat. They made you believe that you were running for a better life, but in truth, you were only participating in the race they created. And now, people are beginning to see the meaning of that race. They're realizing that the dream they were chasing, the economy they trusted, was never built for them. Their goal was never to uplift you. Their goal was to keep you under control. But once you become aware, the game changes. Because then you're no longer their puppet. You become the one who breaks the rules of the game. You'll understand that freedom isn't just the right to speak, it's ownership of your own life. You'll realize that your greatest power isn't your money, it's your awareness. And as long as you remain aware, no one can ever control you again. Now, let's come to the final and most important part. The collapse we're witnessing is not just economic. It's the fall of an entire system. You might think, I'm paying my bills, working, everything's fine. But is it really? When food prices rise every day, when rent climbs higher every month, when the electricity bill burns your eyes, and one hospital bill devours your savings, then things are not fine. This system is built in such a way that even the smallest increase in cost can bring you to your knees. And that's where the real collapse begins. The collapse within. When the body gets sick, peace of mind disappears, and money slips out of your hands. You don't just lose money, you lose control. This is the true death of the American dream. The promise once was, work hard, build a family, buy a home, create a future. Now it remains only as an old advertisement. Today's reality is not about dreaming, it's about surviving. Today's dream simply means somehow managing next month's bills. You might think, I'm okay, I'll manage. But ask yourself, how many months could you survive without income? Where would one unexpected medical bill take you? How much would your life change if you lost your job? When millions of people reach that breaking point, the entire structure begins to shake. That's why America is collapsing, not from an external attack, but from internal pressure. And if you feel tired, stressed, if your paycheck runs out before the month ends, understand this: you are not the failure. The system is. The American dream was once a promise. Today, it has become a nightmare of debt. This isn't just your story. It's the reality of millions. And the truth is, this isn't a temporary crisis. It's not a wave of inflation. It's a structural collapse happening right before our eyes. If you think things will go back to normal, you might just keep waiting, while time slips away. The only way forward is to move ahead. Rely on yourself, reduce your dependence on this broken system, and start thinking differently. What does it mean to live in a country where survival itself has become a luxury? Don't ignore the signs. Don't blame yourself. Speak up. Connect. Wake people up, because the collapse has already begun. And those who can see the truth now, they are the ones who will survive. Stay alert, stay wise, and stay aware.